Have you ever watched a stock just explode, go on this absolutely wild ride, and then nothing? Just silence? Well, that is the exact story of Polyrizon, ticker PLRZ. So today, we're going to grab an analyst report and use it to decode this roller coaster of a journey. We'll see what the data's telling us and, where it might be headed next. Let's dive right in. Seriously, if you were watching PLRZ over the last few months, you would have needed a seatbelt. We're talking about these massive, firework-like highs followed by these gut-wrenching drops. And now, it's gone eerily quiet. It's left investors all over the place just scratching their heads, asking one simple question. What on earth just happened? Okay, let's just trace this wild ride on the timeline. In the middle of July, the stock's just kind of hanging out at around 83 cents. But then, look at this. Just a week later, it skyrockets to $1.87. It more than doubled in value. But, the party didn't last long. By early September, it crashed all the way back down to 93 cents, only to surge again to $1.35. And now, it's just hovering, kind of stuck around $1.12, almost in a state of suspended animation. This timeline really tells you the story of a stock that just cannot make up its mind. Now, all that crazy price action, all those ups and downs, that was all fueled by a massive wave of investor interest. But, like any good fireworks show, after that spectacular grand finale, the crowd packed up and went home. And that right there brings us to the biggest change in this stock story. Just take a look at this. This first bar, this shows that at its peak back in July, over 117 million shares of PLRZ were traded in a single day. That is an absolutely staggering number. Now, fast forward to October and look at this second little bar over here. That number has plummeted to less than 500,000 shares on an average day. I mean, that's not just a drop-off, it's like the entire stadium just emptied out. So how in the world do we explain this? All right, to make any sense of this kind of chaos, analysts turn to this really powerful set of tools called technical analysis. Think of it like being a detective for stocks. You're looking for clues, you're looking for patterns and all the price and volume data to try and figure out what might happen next. It's really all about letting the numbers tell the story. And the very first clue our detective work turns up is that this stock is going completely off script. The analyst report points out something called a low R-squared, which, look, it's just a fancy way of saying that the stock's movements are about as predictable as a coin toss right now. It is not following any kind of trend you can spot. It's just random. So how random are we talking about? Well, a standard linear trend analysis, trying to draw a straight line through the data, can only explain about 1% of this stock's recent price moves. Yeah, you heard that right, 1%. That is like trying to predict the entire week's weather by just looking at a single cloud. This stock is marching to the beat of its own very, very unpredictable drum. So if there is no trend to follow, what's the next move for an analyst? Well, you turn to a whole dashboard of other technical indicators. But, and here's the catch, they are all giving us conflicting signals. It is a classic story of contradiction and indecision on Wall Street. Let's take a quick look at this dashboard. You've got one indicator, the MACD, kind of whispering, hey, maybe buy. But then you've got the Chaikin oscillator over here practically screaming, sell, get out. Meanwhile, the RSI is just shrugging its shoulders, sitting right in the middle, totally neutral. And the ADX, it's just confirming what we already suspected. There is no trend here at all. It's like asking 4 people for directions and getting 4 completely different answers. This is the very definition of a market in limbo. All of this indecision has basically turned the stock chart into a battleground. There is a fierce tug-of-war going on between the buyers, the bulls, and the sellers, the bears. And it's all happening at 2 really critical price levels: a floor that's acting like a safety net, and a ceiling that's proving to be a pretty tough barrier to break. Think of it like this. Support is the floor. It's a price where buyers tend to jump in and stop the stock from falling any further. For PLRZ, that floor is set right at $1. Resistance, on the other hand, is the ceiling. It's where sellers tend to take over and stop the price from rising any higher. And that ceiling is at $1.25. It's a really simple concept, but it is absolutely key to understanding what's going on with this stock right now. And where is our stock right now? Smack dab in the middle of this battlefield, trading at $1.12. It is completely trapped in this no man's land between the $1 floor and the $1.25 ceiling. It's a total stalemate, a standoff, and it feels like everyone is just waiting for someone to make the first move. So the big question is, where does it go from here? What happens next for PLRZ? Well, based on all the evidence we've gathered, the analyst report basically maps out 3 possible scenarios. It's kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure for investors, and believe me, the stakes are pretty high. Okay, scenario 1. We get a bullish breakout. The buyers, the bulls, they finally get enough strength to shatter that 125 ceiling. If that happens, they're probably targeting that next peak at $1.35. But this needs a huge surge of buyers to happen. Scenario 2, the bearish breakdown. The sellers gain the upper hand. They push the price right through that $1 floor, and that could send it tumbling back towards its recent low of 93 cents. And then there's scenario 3, the sideways shuffle. The stock just continues this listless drift, bouncing between the floor and the ceiling, basically waiting for some kind of news to give it a reason to move. So let's wrap this up. What have we learned? Well, this stock has gone from a raging bonfire to a tiny flickering candle. The investor interest that fueled the fire has all but evaporated. The technical indicators, they're all over the place, showing total indecision. The whole story right now hangs in the balance, caught between that $1 floor and the 125 ceiling. The only thing that can break this deadlock is a major catalyst, some big news, a market shift, something that acts like a spark to either reignite the fire or just put it out for good. The data paints a really clear picture here. This is a stock on a knife's edge, perfectly balanced between breaking out and breaking down. So the question for any investor watching isn't if it will move, but which way it will finally go. What's it going to take? What will be the catalyst that finally pushes PLRZ off the fence and into its next big chapter? Only time and the data will tell.